Now let's talk about what you're getting for your money, because this is where things get interesting. The 2026 Ioniq 5 starts at $35,000. This car has won more awards than I have time to list. U.S. News named it Best Compact Electric SUV for Families, ranked number 1 in its class with a 9.4 out of 10 score. For 2026, Hyundai did something nobody expected. They dropped the price. Big. The average price cut across the entire 2026 Ioniq 5 lineup is $9,155. The SEL trim alone dropped $9,800. The base SEL standard range now starts at $35,000 before destination. That is the most accessible this car has ever been since it launched. Here's why that matters. The federal $7,500 EV tax credit is gone. Instead of raising prices and hoping you wouldn't notice or offering manufacturer discounts through the back door, Hyundai just cut the sticker price permanently. You don't need the government to make the math work anymore. On specs, you're looking at up to 318 miles of EPA range. Next, charging port, giving you access to over 25,000 Tesla superchargers with no adapter required. 250 kilowatt DC fast charging. 2 battery sizes, rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. Up to 320 horsepower in the AWD variants. The interior has dual 12.3-inch screens that flow into one continuous display across the dashboard. The exterior design, that retro-futuristic pixelated look, still turns heads. I have seen more people stop and ask about an Ioniq 5 than almost any other car on the road right now. The Ioniq 5N is the performance version, 641 horsepower at peak boost, a car that hits 60 miles per hour in under 3.4 seconds. For 2026, it gets the next port as standard, so no more adapters at the supercharger network. The 2026 Ioniq 9 starts at $60,555. This one is brand new, and it is a legitimate game changer for families. 3 rows, 7 passengers, over 300 miles of range on every single trim. Let me say that again. Every single trim gets over 300 miles. The base rear-wheel drive model gets 335 miles. That's more than a loaded Tesla Model Y. Power runs from 215 horsepower in the base model up to 422 horsepower in the Performance Limited. The 11 10.3 kilowatt-hour battery pack charges from 10 to 80% in about 40 minutes at a public fast charger and in just 24 minutes from a 350 kilowatt charger. The interior has to be experienced to be believed. Relaxation seats in the front and second row, a sliding center console, ambient lighting, 7 USB-C ports, and it's quiet, genuinely, almost eerily quiet on the highway. Reviewers have compared the cabin refinement to vehicles that cost significantly more, starting at $60,555. The Ioniq 9 sits right against the Rivian R1S and the Cadillac Lyriq. KBB reviewers said it feels in some trims better than both of them. U.S. News gave it their 2026 Best Midsize Electric SUV for Families Award, 9.2 out of 10. And it's built right there in Georgia, all of them. Every Ioniq 9 sold in America is assembled at HMGMA. If you're watching this and thinking about your next family vehicle, write this one down. If this deep dive is giving you what you need, hit that like button and leave a comment below. Tell me, Ioniq 5 or Ioniq 9, or are you waiting for something else in the lineup? I read everything and I want to know what you're thinking. Here is the question that actually matters. The EV market is rough for everyone right now. Tax credits are gone. Tariffs are real. Consumer demand is soft. So why is Hyundai different? Why are they growing when Ford is bleeding billions and Honda is posting operating losses for the first time since before the moon landing? There are 4 reasons, and not a single one of them is magic. Reason 1, they built for customers, not compliance. Look at what killed Honda. Every EV Honda ever launched was a compliance car. The EV Plus in 1997, lease only, 81 miles of range, about 325 units total, most of them recalled and crushed. The Fit EV in 2013 capped at exactly 1,100 units. The Clarity Electric in 2017, lease only in California and Oregon. The Honda E in 2020 sold about 10,000 units in Europe before production ended. Every single one built to satisfy a government mandate, not because customers were lining up. Hyundai launched the original Ioniq 5 for real, full production, real availability in real markets. Real specs that competed against real rivals. They sold a record 47,039 units of the Ioniq 5 in the United States in 2025, a 6% increase year over year, even after the $7,500 tax credit expired at the end of September. Let that sink in. Sales rose for the year, even though the credit that everyone said was essential disappeared in Q4. Reason 2, they built their American factory before they had to. Hyundai didn't wait for tariffs to force them into a domestic manufacturing announcement. They didn't rush a factory announcement as a political response to trade policy. They broke ground in Georgia in October 2022. When the 25% tariff on imported vehicles landed in April 2025, Hyundai was already making Ioniq 5s in Georgia. That's the difference between a company that anticipates and a company that reacts. Every automaker that was importing EVs from overseas got hit by that tariff. Hyundai absorbed a fraction of what competitors faced because the cars were already built here. That's not luck. That's a multi-year strategic decision that paid off at exactly the right moment. Reason 3. They cut prices instead of making excuses. When the tax credit died, some automakers hoped the market wouldn't notice. Others offered back-end dealer discounts and lease incentives that don't show up in the headline number. Hyundai did the math publicly and cut prices by up to $9,800 right on the sticker. No fine print, no lease-only redemption code. CEO Jose Munoz has been consistent and clear. Compete on value. Grow production in Georgia. Never build a business case that depends on a tax incentive that could disappear with one election cycle. That philosophy is what separates the companies that survive a market downturn from the ones that get caught exposed when the rules change. Reason 4. Their battery technology and data is genuinely ahead of the conversation. This one doesn't get enough attention. At Hyundai's CEO Investor Day in September 2025, they published something remarkable. They've analyzed durability data from over 50,000 Ioniq 5 vehicles, including cars that have been driven more than 250,000 miles. The data shows that most of those vehicles retain more than 90% of their original battery performance. That is the number the used EV market runs on. That is the number that makes the long-term cost calculation work. If you buy an Ioniq 5 today and drive it hard for 10 years, Hyundai has 50,000 vehicles worth of real-world evidence about what that battery will look like. Looking forward, their battery roadmap promises a 30% cost reduction, 15% higher energy density, and 15% shorter charging times, all by 2027, not by 2035, not by some future generation of vehicles, by 2027. That is a meaningful near-term technology advantage that closes the gap with competitors who have been outspending them on battery development for years. Starting in 2026, Hyundai is also implementing a cloud-based battery management system that collects real-time data from vehicles in diverse environments to run predictive diagnostics while you drive, while you charge, and even while the car sits in your driveway. This is not a gimmick. This is the kind of system that gives Hyundai and the people who buy their cars a real-time read on battery health that most manufacturers simply cannot offer. Put all 4 of those reasons together: customer-first products, domestic production, price discipline, battery data. The picture becomes clear. This is not a company that got lucky. This is a company that made decisions, executed on them, and is now standing in a market where many of its competitors are standing in the wreckage of the decisions they made instead. So where does Hyundai go from here, and what does any of this mean for someone who is actually trying to decide whether to buy one of these things? Let's start with what's coming in the lineup, because Hyundai is not done building. The Ioniq 3 had its world premiere in April 2026. This is a compact electric vehicle targeted at drivers who want the Ioniq experience in a smaller, more urban-friendly package. Expected pricing in European markets starts around €30,000. If that number translates into something similar for the American market, the Ioniq 3 becomes one of the most accessible purpose-built EVs from any mainstream automaker in the country. There are also credible reports of an Ioniq 4 in development, a compact electric sedan potentially arriving in the latter half of 2026, likely starting around the $30,000 range in the U.S. That would sit between the Elantra and the standard Ioniq 5 in Hyundai's lineup, and would fill a segment that very few brands are competing in right now. An affordable purpose-built compact EV from a company that has already proven it can make great ones. The iNiq 6N, the performance sedan, is confirmed and arriving in spring 2026. It shares the 84 kilowatt-hour battery and 641 horsepower peak output with the iNiq 5N. Starting price is estimated around $70,000 in the U.S., making it a direct competitor to the Tesla Model 3 performance and high-end European sports sedans. For driving enthusiasts who want track-ready performance with a long-range electric platform, this is the car that didn't really exist before. Hyundai's N division is reportedly developing something even more exciting for the future, an entry-level performance EV. Think hot hatch energy, compact, targeted at 200 to 270 horsepower and priced between $35,000 and $45,000. If that car actually arrives at that price point in America, it fills a space in the EV performance market that is essentially empty right now. There is nothing else like it. The Veloster N is gone. The Golf GTI is not electric. This could be the car that replaces both. Then there's Genesis. Hyundai's luxury brand is getting the full electrification treatment. That includes BEVs and hybrids, but also EREV technology, extended-range electric vehicles. Think of an EREV as an EV with a small internal combustion engine that acts exclusively as a generator when the battery gets low. You get EV smoothness, EV efficiency, and essentially unlimited range because you can stop for gas if you have to. It's a smart answer to range anxiety that doesn't compromise the daily EV experience. Genesis is targeting 350,000 annual sales globally by 2030 and is planning to enter up to 20 European markets while building on its growing U.S. base. Then there is the Waymo partnership. Hyundai is providing Ioniq 5-based vehicles to Waymo, the autonomous driving company that Google spun out, for fully autonomous public road testing in the U.S. Those vehicles are already out there delivering real rides in real cities. This collaboration is not a concept or a research project. It is a step toward Hyundai's vehicles carrying passengers without a driver behind the wheel. That's a robotaxi business, and it positions Hyundai not just as a car manufacturer, but as a mobility infrastructure company. The financial commitment behind all of this is equally serious. At CEO Investor Day in September 2025, Hyundai announced a $77.3 trillion investment plan over 5 years from 2026 to 2030. That includes massive R&D spending, capital expenditure across manufacturing, and strategic investment in technology partnerships. The company also revised its revenue growth target upward even while acknowledging tariff headwinds. Here is what that all adds up to: a complete ecosystem. A factory in Georgia scaling to 500,000 vehicles a year, batteries manufactured on the same campus. EVs, hybrids, EREVs, performance models, 3-row family SUVs, compact affordable entries, luxury expressions under Genesis, and fully autonomous mobility under the Waymo partnership. All connected, all funded, all being built right now. While Ford is in a meeting trying to figure out how to lose less than $132,000 per car, Hyundai is planning the next decade. The EV market right now is confusing. Prices are moving, incentives are gone, companies are canceling cars left and right. For someone just trying to figure out whether an electric vehicle makes sense for their life and their budget, all of this noise can be genuinely overwhelming. That's exactly why this channel exists. We are not here to cheerlead any automaker. We're here to look at the numbers, dig into the strategy, call out what's real and what's marketing, and give you what you need to make a smart decision, whether you're buying your first car ever or your 15th. If this breakdown helps you make sense of what Hyundai is doing and why it matters, do me a favor, hit that like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps more people find content like this. Subscribe to Motors In if you haven't already. We cover the cars that actually matter with the depth they deserve. Ford burned $132,000 on every electric vehicle it shipped. Honda pulled the plug on every EV it ever announced. Stellantis hemorrhaged $22 billion. And right in the middle of that carnage, Hyundai just closed its 5th consecutive year of record United States sales. 772,000 vehicles sold in 2025, while the entire industry was on fire. That wasn't an accident. While competitors built compliance cars to satisfy regulators, Hyundai dropped $12.6 billion on a factory in Georgia, manufactured vehicles people actually wanted to drive, and slashed prices the second federal incentives disappeared. That's not timing, that's execution. By the time we're done here, you'll understand exactly how they pulled it off and whether one of these belongs in your driveway. Let's talk about what's happening to electric vehicles in America right now, because the battlefield looks brutal. The EV market just lived through one of its roughest periods in history. After years of steady growth, reality arrived hard and fast. The federal $7,500 EV tax credit vanished on September 30th, 2025, and the market felt it immediately. Q3 of 2025 was a record. 438,000 EV sales, over 10% market share. Buyers rushed dealerships like the last day of a liquidation sale, desperate to grab that credit before it evaporated. Then Q4 fell off a cliff. Market share collapsed to 5.8%. EV inventory ballooned to 149 days, sitting on dealer lots by November. Q1 of 2026 brought a 27% year-over-year drop in EV sales, the first expected annual decline in EV market share since 2011. Then tariffs landed. The 25% Section 232 tariff on imported vehicles hit in April 2025. In June 2025, California revoked the Advanced Clean Cars mandate, the regulation that had been forcing automakers to sell EVs whether customers wanted them or not. The regulatory floor that propped up the entire industry just got ripped out from under them. Ford's EV division lost over $5 billion in 2024. At one point in Q1 of 2024, Ford was losing $132,000 on every single electric vehicle it sold. That is not a typo. $132,000 per car. Stellantis, the company behind Jeep and Ram, booked $22 billion in net losses in 2025, with over $25 billion in EV-related charges. The Jeep Wagoneer EV sold 175 units in Q1 of 2026. 175 units. Volkswagen killed the American-built ID Pine 4 in April 2026. Honda canceled its entire Zero Series lineup, the SUV, the Saloon, the Acura RSX, and booked up to $15.7 billion in losses. Their first operating loss since 1957. And then there was Hyundai, standing right in the middle of all that carnage, posting its fifth consecutive year of record retail sales in the United States. 772,000 vehicles sold in 2025, 5 straight years in a row. How? Before we talk about the cars, you need to understand the factory, because the factory is the story. In May 2022, Hyundai Motor Group signed an agreement with the state of Georgia to build something that had never existed before, a fully integrated purpose-built EV and hybrid manufacturing complex. Not a converted gas plant, a brand new facility built from the ground up for electric vehicles. The site sits in Ellabelle, Georgia, about 20 miles outside Savannah, 2,284 acres, over 16 million square feet of factory floor. The largest single economic development project in the history of the state of Georgia. They broke ground in October 2022. In October 2024, just 2 years later, the first vehicle rolled off the line. A Hyundai Ioniq 5 built in America. Hyundai calls it the Hyundai Motor Group Metaplant America. HMGMA for short. The word meta, as they describe it, means transformative, and the way they run it is genuinely different from anything else in automotive manufacturing right now. There are no traditional conveyor belts. Instead, autonomous guided vehicles move car bodies through the production process. The entire system, ordering, procurement, logistics, production, is optimized with AI. Robots assist the humans, not replace them, assist. The total Hyundai Motor Group investment in Georgia is $12.6 billion. That includes a joint battery manufacturing facility with LG Energy Solution right on the same campus. Hyundai just committed an additional $21 billion in U.S. manufacturing investment from 2025 to 2028. In March 2025, they held the grand opening. Governor Brian Kemp was there. Hyundai's executive chair, Yusun Chung, stood at that podium and said, "With HMGMA, we are building the future of mobility together with America in America." That's not marketing language. That's a company that made a decision, backed it with billions of dollars, and followed through. Current production capacity is 300,000 vehicles annually, with plans to scale to 500,000. Both the Ioniq 5 and the all-new Ioniq 9 are already rolling off that line. Kia joins the party in 2026. When everyone else was canceling factories, Hyundai was opening one. Real quick, if you're watching this and thinking this is the kind of content you want more of, proper breakdowns, real numbers, no fluff, hit that subscribe button right now. Ring the notification bell so you actually see these videos when they drop. Hit like, because it tells the algorithm this content is worth showing to people who need it. This channel is growing fast, and I want you in this community from the beginning.